Hello, everybody. This is Josh, the producer. Um, for most people, this will appear to be my first album review, which is actually not the case. I've done a lot of album reviews in the past, which have either since been deleted or will be very hard to find. Like 2, 3 years ago, I would do written reviews on Instagram. I stopped doing that, and then I started doing video album reviews on YouTube. But all the reviews that I've done up until this point have been deleted. But today, it's a little late, but we're gonna be reviewing "Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon" by Pop Smoke. I listened to this a few times. At first, I had only heard some of the tracks, and I had liked them a lot. But I fully went into the album with pretty high expectations because, for those who don't know who Pop Smoke is a New York drill rapper whose recent fame was kind of short-lived due to his untimely death earlier this year. And I've enjoyed a lot of his music in the past, like on Gotti with Travis Scott, or on Dior, which was kind of his breakout single. And his deep voice and his low key demeanor has always kind of attracted me more and more to him as an artist. Ever since I first noticed him, probably back in late 2019 or early 2020. But this so going into a posthumous album, I actually had pretty low expectations, not because of Pop as an artist, but because a lot of posthumous records have been very poorly put together and very poorly treated in the past. For example, XXX Tentacion, one of my favorite artists of all time, but his last two records that were put together by his mom have just not really hit the spot for me. I feel like they were more and more just cash grabs and exploitation rather than an actual effort to put together a cohesive body of music. So going into this, I actually didn't have a lot of expectations, but I clearly stood corrected because this album is actually one of the best posthumous albums from such a. I mean, he wasn't. I wouldn't say he was unpopular, but like in comparison to X and Juice World, things like that, he wasn't that particularly like well known and high budgeted when he was alive. Like he wasn't as well known as X or Juice World was when they were alive. And this album went beyond my expectations. Like, I was not expecting something to be so well put together, so well handled, so delicately handled. The vocals, like, so properly mixed, such good production. I would have, like, the only thing about the production is I would have liked to see a little bit more diverse production because, like with Pop Smoke, there's only a certain amount of times you could hear like the exact same kind of beat before it gets annoying or kind of old, but that never really ruined the record in particular for me. So going into the album, we have an intro. It's around 30 seconds long, and it's like it kind of just seems like the first half of a track. I would have liked to see. I mean, it might be unrealistic, but I like to see how the song would have played out if it had kind of been added to, or have somebody had brought a feature on. Maybe it was just an intro. I would have liked it to be longer. But other than that, there's nothing really bad to say about it. Like, I liked it as a whole. Like, I love the beat, the amplified kicks, the scattered hi hats, and how it transitions into like that auto tuned outro. It was just overall a really good intro. And the next track, "Aim for the Moon," it has some nice drums. I would have liked a more distinct melody because it was just kind of like a faint loop playing in the background. Like, I would have liked if the beat had more like of a distinct melodic sound instead of just having the drums by themselves. But I've been seeing a lot more in trap lately. Is just beats that only contain drums. I've been seeing that a lot lately. I really like Pop's verse. Quavo's verse started off a bit rocky, but when the auto tune fades in, it kind of gives it a nice vibe, and actually becomes a great part of the track. But we'll be talking about Quavo a little later in this review. So surprisingly, on the next track, For the Night, we actually get some pretty great singing and delivery by Pop. Never really would have expected these type of songs from Pop, like in the beginning of 2020 when he was releasing stuff like Dior or Gotti. I would have never expected him to release songs like this back then. But now you can see how well he is at it. It's kind of sad to see how much potential he could have had, how much diverse music he could have released if he was still alive, and we got to see like just a small tip of the iceberg in comparison to what could have become. In regards to the track For the Night, I love the stuttering beat, produced by Cash Money AP, who I've been a fan of since like 2015. The flute, acoustic guitar, and the knocking drums blend together perfectly. Surprisingly, a great verse by Lil Baby. Not usually a fan of him. Kind of think if people who have watched my older reviews, the ones that have been deleted, know that I just basically think he's kind of like a copy of Young Thug, and I kind of think he's a little overrated. There are some songs by him that I definitely like, don't get me wrong, but I've not really been a fan of his stuff in the past. But speaking of the song, staying on topic, I actually really did like his part. It blends amazingly with Pop's part. And then DaBaby comes in, delivers a decent verse that fits nicely, but his ad libs kind of get annoying. I mean, I know that's something he does on like every song, but I could have just done without them here. And I know that's kind of like his signature thing, but it kind of gets annoying after a while. Pop's vocals are mixed very well in the next two track, Gangstas and Yeah Yeah. Very good example of how carefully and well Pop's integrity was maintained throughout the making of the album. I love the calm delivery, the crisp ad libs, and the background on both tracks. There's nothing particularly like spectacular or mind blowing about the songs, but there isn't really any bad things to say about them either. They're both just bangers, basically. The beat on Creature is clearly made in Pop Smoke's style. It was clearly designed for Pop to rap over, and why whoever put this together decided to put Sway Lee here. I just don't get that decision really, because the beat was clearly made for someone like Pop with the deep voice and like kind of like that murderous flow to rap over. And Sway Lee sadly just doesn't fit very well in that kind of situation. I don't really see a purpose for him on the track, other than for publicity and a cash grab, really, because I could have easily seen Pop rapping the exact same lyrics in the exact same flow, and having it sound fantastic. So I really don't think Sway really added anything to the track, and it's nothing against Sway in particular. Like I really do like a lot of the Ray Shremmerd songs and Ray Shremmerd records, but I just don't think he did very well on this track. I don't think he would be the best person to use as a feature here. But then Pop after this comes in and makes the song enjoyable, though. So Sway doesn't entirely ruin it. Pop comes in with a nice verse. On Snitching, Quavo opens with a meh verse, but nothing to get too excited or too angry over. It was just kind of on the fence about it. But then Pop gives us a nice breath of fresh air when he comes in with his deep, smoky voice and his cold delivery. And Future comes in with a nice verse that would have very, very nicely fit with Pop's part if it didn't have that chorus by Quavo in between. I just don't think Quavo was needed at all on this track, which I could say about a lot of the tracks on the album. But I did like the instrumental though. I like the twinkling melody with the kind of like playful instrumental, basically. Just a nice beat. Rowdy Rebel, recently incarcerated rapper, actually gives us a very nice verse on Make It Rain via a jail phone call that fits greatly with the beat, actually, which surprised me, especially since I've seen so many jail phone call songs that have been absolute shit. Kodak Black. The Woo is a very enjoyable highlight for me, featuring climbing guitar progressions with a low-key, vibey, and catchy chorus from Pop Smoke. Very nice instrumental, and Roddy Ricch actually manages to match Pop's flow with an identically hard-hitting verse and some nice singing too, which calms down a bit and picks up again into a surprisingly nice bit by 50 Cent, who I've never really been particularly fond of. I've always kind of thought 50 was a bit overrated. And it's nothing against like old school music. That's not it. I just never specifically been a fan of 50 Cent. But it's all out a great track. No dull moments come to mind. It's still stuck in my head. Great track. One of the best on the album in my opinion. And a nice outro by Pop too. After 50's parts, kind of switches the flow, but it still fits with the song. It's kind of hard to explain. Completely different flow, but it fits greatly. But after that track, we get another Quavo feature. It's the third on the album, for some reason, and then Tyga appears here for some reason, and he gives us a half-ass verse that really doesn't add anything to the song or the album itself. It just sounds it sounds like something like a middle school SoundCloud rapper would write, like if he was asked to write something for him. The chorus of the track is fine, but I feel like whoever put this track together should have chosen completely different people to use as features, because this track does not really come together cohesively at all. I think it's just kind of like a flop. I could have enjoyed the album just about the same if this track wasn't there, if that makes sense. The track Enjoy Yourself then shows some great vocal mixing, a catchy and slow vibe chorus with a nice Kyle-style beat. The way Pop delivers melodically throughout the track is just on point. It's kind of difficult to explain. There are several pleasant moments like these, like on the track What You Know or Diana, who we didn't need King Combs on, by the way. Mood Swings is probably one of my favorite slow songs from Pop that I've ever heard. Lil TJ was definitely one of the best choices to feature on the track, despite the fact that I've never really been a big fan of his past work. It's kind of been like a theme on this album. Like, I've seen a lot of people who I've never really been a fan of, and I've seen them deliver surprisingly good parts and verses, besides Tyga. But getting back on topic, Lil TJ and Pop, they both work together in delivering slow, catchy love song bars back and forth over a nice low-key instrumental. And despite the fact that TikTok kind of ruined this for me, I still think it's one of the best tracks on the record, hands down. Pop also gives us some of his most enjoyable singing while managing to stay in his low register voice. It's another example of something I would have never expected to hear if it was like early 2020 or something. It's a huge change in direction and diversity. A lot of music listeners, especially me, love diversity when it comes to artists like this. Next comes Got It On Me, which is another favorite of mine. Probably one of the best bangers on the album. It's just this wild hood anthem with yet another catchy sung chorus that transitions into like a dark, murderous trap verse that I still can't get out of my head. It's one of the rare times I actually enjoy like those choir chorus chants in the background of the instrumental like I did there. I usually don't really go for those, but it's a nice New York style drill beat. And I also like that creeping bell in the background every few measures or so. I would have liked to see a better outro or send-off here as the last track, but instead we got Dior, which was an already released single before Pop's passing. It's a good song nonetheless, but I don't exactly feel that it needed to be the outro of the album. I was under the impression that we'd get something more meaningful or at least more significant as the final closer. But there's nothing I really have against the track on its own. I think it's a good track. I just think it should have been maybe somewhere in the middle of the album and I think that like a more meaningful outro could have been chosen. That's just about it for that. Overall, I would have liked to see a bit more diverse production on the album. I already said that in the beginning. I definitely think whatever Pop recorded before his passing was taken care of very well and crafted into a very good posthumous project. There's been two posthumous projects recently. There was the one by Juice World, who I may review, depends, and this one by Pop here. Very good record, especially in comparison to other artists' posthumous works. Definitely didn't need to see Quavo 3 times in the album, though. And a lot of the other features were needed. Sway Lee, King Combs, Tyga, again, Quavo, who I just said. Um, and with 19 tracks and a very long runtime, there are some underwhelming or boring moments here and there, but the good definitely outshines the bad. There are moments where I think, wait a minute, that's perfect. And there are other moments where I just wonder, like, what the hell was the person making this thinking, you know? Overall, very good album. Good job to 50 Cent. I heard that he played a huge role in the making of this. All the producers and engineers that worked together on this album, great job. Not really any bad production or bad mixing anywhere on the album that I recall. So yeah, this is best posthumous album this year. I at least that I've heard. So I'm feeling a 7 out of 10. Let me know what you think about this album. Did you like it? Did you dislike it? Just let me know in the comments. That's my opinion. This is Josh, the producer. Leave a like, subscribe, post notifications. I'll be reviewing more albums in the future. Go check out some of my old album reviews. Probably gonna be pretty hard to find because, I mean, I've reviewed Eternal Atake. I reviewed a lot of classic albums like the Unicorns albums, the Nutri-Milk Hotel albums, all in written reviews and some video reviews. I reviewed the City Morgue tape. I reviewed Ice Hotel by X. I reviewed a lot of albums. But yeah, 7 out of 10 album, which is a very positive review. For people who don't know, anything 6 and above is generally a positive review for me, and anything 4 and below is negative. 5 is kind of like in the middle. It was okay. So yeah, hope everyone's has a good day. That's my opinion. Pop Smoke, shoot for the stars, aim for the moon.